The beauty, as I said, belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Keep dreaming. One day, your dreams will come to actualization. On that note, I say welcome to another interesting edition of your weekly magazine program, Personality, Places and Events. My name is Nkem Nzeji.
Whoever that you have the chance to help, please just go ahead. Don't think of what that person is going to do back for you. Do your best and leave the rest to God Almighty. Just like Nkem say, you're welcome to the program Personality, Place and Events. My name is Eyitayo Oyinson. We're so happy, we're so glad to be here, and of course we thank you very much for being part of the program. Today it's going to be a bumper package. What you just need to do is just stay tight and of course watch how the program goes. And please don't forget to follow us on our social media pages at PPE Nigeria. Right, let's start off with the personality of today. Nigeria just clocked 57, and Personality, Place and Events crew, we've decided to look at the health sector of Nigeria at 57. The journey so far. Seyi Adesina and I had a chat with the director of the National Primary Health Care Development Agency based in Abuja with the name Dr. Faisal Shuaib. We had a wonderful time with him and we get a lot from that special interview. We just to sit tight and of course take a look at that interview. Right after that, Nkem will be back to tell us the events that we have for today on the program. But I must assure you, we're going far to Aba in Abia State. What took place there, you know shortly. Let's take a look at this special interview with Dr. Shuaib. Hello, hi there, welcome to the personality segment of your weekly magazine program on Africa Independent Television, AIT. Wherever you're watching us, I must thank you very much for being part of the program today. As you all know, on this program we bring in important personalities on the show, those who have covered it in their different profession, and of course our guest today is no exception. I am not alone, of course. On set, Seyi Adesina with me.
Thank you so much, Taya. Like Bradley said, we have a very important personality, so I guess for this week. It's a man we personally have a very high level of respect for, and of course we actually refer to him as a man of sterling qualities with monumental accomplishment, Dr. Faisal Shuaib.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Let's just start with this. No. Who is our guest?
Right, so like you rightly mentioned, my name is Faisal Shuaib. I'm a medical doctor with a bias for public health practice. I went to school at the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, and then I studied at the University of Lagos, where I earned my master's in public health. And then I capped it with a doctorate in public health from the University of Alabama in Birmingham. But really I've worked in different spheres of public health with the Nasarawa state government, with the World Health Organization, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in Seattle before I came to this position.
Let me really ask you this very important question, sir. Primary health care centers in Nigeria, how far?
Right, so when Mr. President came on board, he made it very clear that primary health care would be his focus in the health sector. And he was more concerned about reducing the gap in access to health care between the poor and the rich. And he gave a clear directive that he wanted to bridge that gap so that people are able to access healthcare irrespective of where they live or whether they can pay for it or not. And this healthcare should be of sufficient quality to improve their health when they get to the health facilities. And the Honorable Minister of Health took that vision and ran with it. His policy direction was very clear. How do we institute primary healthcare in Nigeria in a way that people access good quality healthcare, and because they've accessed healthcare, they do not become poor? So what happens in many places right now is because you fall sick, you pay out of pocket and land yourself in huge financial risks that could tip you into poverty. So many people are one illness away from extreme poverty. How do we ensure as a government that our primary health care facilities have the right manpower, have the right medicines to ensure that people are able to get good quality health care without becoming poor because they fall sick?
So let me ask you that we have more than over 30,000 healthcare centers in Nigeria, am I correct, sir?
That's correct.
What are you doing to make at least 10,000 function there?
So what we've done since inception is to say we cannot go around and say we're going to make all 30,000 primary healthcare facilities at the same level of functionality. So we say we're going to try our best to ensure that in each ward of Nigeria, approximately 10,000 wards, we'll ensure that one functional health facility exists where you have people working 24 hours a day, you have competent staff who have the right tools, the right medicines working in that ward. So over the course of the last 2 years, what the government has done is to try and make funds available to start piece by piece to make sure that first in every senatorial district we have one functional health facility that people can go to and access care. And gradually we're trying to pull in resources to make sure that we now scale up to these 10,000 health facilities. The good thing though is that government is not alone in this. You also have development partners who have renovated health facilities and have made them functional. UNICEF, the World Bank, USAID, the MNCH program through DFID are also renovating some of these health facilities. But government has not reneged on its promise to ensure that these health facilities are continuously being renovated. As of last count, out of the 110 health facilities that were earmarked for 2017, almost 80 have already been renovated, and we're at the point of assessing the manpower requirements for these health facilities to make them functional.
Well, let's talk about the responsibility of the federal government and, of course, your agency. It will take me to my next question. Who is responsible to build the primary care centers, or who's to, or was it your agency just an intervention?
Right. So as you are well aware, health is on a concurrent list, and really from the beginning, primary health care centers are supposed to be within the purview of the local government areas and then the states. Most of what the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency has been doing is really in terms of interventions. The role of NPHCD really is to provide oversight, to provide the standards for the implementation of primary healthcare. So ideally, renovating these primary healthcare centers, making them functional should be the job of the states. In the end, the citizens of the states have access to these primary healthcare centers. But in the end, we're one people, and where the federal government is able to intervene, that's exactly what the federal government is doing to close that gap between the resources available at the states and what's available at the federal government, so that everywhere we go, we'll be able to have access to the types of primary health care that would really want for our people.
What are the components of these health centers?
So these health centers, when you take a drive all across the country, you find that primary health care centers are in different stages of disrepair. So many years of neglect, right, have rendered them with leaky roofs. You go to some of them, they've been taken over by animals, right? So what the government is doing now is to try and reclaim these primary health care centers, renovate them, ensure that after renovating them, because when you talk about functionality, it's not just the buildings, right? It's not just the infrastructure. It's also ensuring that you have the right caliber of manpower in those health facilities. So you go, for instance, to a state, you find that in the urban areas, you could find maybe a primary health care center that might have, say, 30 midwives or nurses working in that primary health care center. But if you move to the rural areas, you find it very difficult to even get one midwife. So the midwife works in the morning, and at night when the woman comes and she wants to deliver a baby, there's no midwife to take the baby. So there's a disproportionate distribution of these health workers. And when you try to move some of these health workers from the urban areas, if you're not careful, they will move you from your position. But what we're saying is that we now have to do a staff audit, and that's what we're doing. We're doing a staff audit, and we're taking the results of these staff audits to the executive governors and say, hey, it's not that you don't have health workers across your state. The problem is with maldistribution. So how do we ensure, how do you incentivize people to work in the rural areas and provide 24 hours service instead of a situation where you have 24 hours service or higher quality of care in the urban centers, but the people who live in the rural areas, our uncles, our grandparents who live in the rural areas, who are in the agriculture, who feed us, don't have the kind of access to healthcare that people in the urban centers do have. And the decision will now be for the governors to now say, look, we have to redistribute. Where we have a gap, then we can look at recruiting more health workers or actually task shifting. Maybe there are people who are not purely in the medical field, but they can do a better job, for instance, of organizing immunization sessions. They don't have to give the injectables, but they can make sure that all the vaccines are in place for when the clients come. So we're looking at all of this and ensuring that the different pieces are put in place. What about the operational cost? You may have a health center, but do they have the funds, for instance, to fix the leaky roof? Or do they have to apply for simple funds just to fix the roof, pay for electricity, pay for the water? Or is it something that at the LGA level, at the health facility level, some of these decisions can be taken to fix them and they have the funding to make sure that it occurs?
Right. Let's talk about the present administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. They promised Nigerians recently, going to have few numbers of functional health centers all across the country. Educate us on that. What is the stage? How many health centers are we looking? Functional health centers.
So right now, from our analysis, and we're still doing a thorough job of ensuring that we get to every length and breadth of the country to know and assess really the functionality. What do you mean by functionality? If somebody comes to a health facility and you are able to treat for malaria, is that functionality? Or if a woman is able to come and have a safe delivery, right, and is able to be discharged hale and healthy, is that functionality? What do you define as functionality? And are there different categories of functionality? So those are some of the things that we're looking at, and we're saying that in some of these primary healthcare centers, we're going to say this is a 5-star primary healthcare center where you can get all services. You're able to get at least the minimum services, right? The minimum package of services. That could be a 5-star center. But there are some places where you don't have this complement of services. Maybe that is what you call a 3-star center, but everybody knows that if you go to that center, maybe they're not providing the kind of services that you want to. And the governors also know that in my state, right, I have maybe 100 primary healthcare centers that provide the full complement of services based on the minimum service package, but I have maybe only 20 that are providing full package. We're doing all of those assessments, and yes, we say we want to renovate and make functional 10,000 health facilities, one per ward. But already we have some between 4,000 to 6,000 that are already functional, not just because of government, but because of all the work that has been done by different entities, the private sector, NGOs, and government. And already what we're looking at is a gap of 4,000 maybe health facilities at different levels of functionality. So we're now trying to assess what is that level of functionality, and then what do we need to do to bridge the gap. The focus now is less talk, but really delivering on what the government has promised.
Let me ask you, 10th of January, His Excellency the President commissioned the Chiguru Center. What was your take about that?
No, excellent. I mean, that set the standard, it set the stage to say that in the last few years, we've seen a lot of plans, we've seen a lot of strategizing around what we need to do about primary healthcare center. But on January 10th, the President made it very clear. He showed the vision that it's not about the plans, it's not about the strategizing, but really delivering on the results. That day, the commissioning of the Kuchingero Primary Healthcare Center was done. it sets the stage for us to go ahead and renovate over 70 primary healthcare centers that we have also made very functional. So yes, in the last few years we've been stumbling, but we're using those stumbles as stepping stones to making progress in terms of our interventions in primary healthcare.
With your leadership and leadership of the Honorable Minister and His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, I want to ask you, sir, what is it to be done to change this narrative?
So first and foremost, upon getting the results, we said we have to do things differently. We cannot continue to do exactly the same things and expect different results. So we said to have over 700,000 children who have not been vaccinated is a source of concern in public health. So we set up a national emergency routine immunization coordinating center to coordinate all the work that's going on around routine immunization, so that everywhere in the country we can see where the issues are, ask and engage with people to understand better how we got to this phase, but also engaging with traditional leaders who are the custodians of our communities, and asking them what can we do differently to ensure that people come to the health facilities. Where do we need to push more resources so that we're able to provide a better environment that people can work in? How do we motivate our health workers to ensure that they have all the tools that they require to provide the services that are so dearly needed in the health facilities? But we're also holding people accountable to ensure that they do their job.
Just lastly before we round up, well, how was the growing up like?
Growing up was exciting. It's something I look back at, and I wouldn't change it for all the teen in China. I think you know, whatever I've come to do in my life was because of the values I learned as a child from my mother, and then from my dad before he died. You know, the values of hard work, the values of compassion, the values of humility, knowing that you know, no matter where you are, we're all exactly the same in front of God, and that someday we'll be held accountable for every single thing that we do. So if you're in a position of leadership, you should see it as a position of trust. You're holding the public's trust, and that someday you're going to be asked to account for every single thing that you do. So for me, that is those are values that I hold very passionately to my heart, and to know that, you know, I'm executive director only for a time, and that at the end of my tenure I should be able to look back and say I did the best for Nigerians.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, we're through with the interview, but this part we have something special to present to our guests. So on behalf of Personality Places and Events on Africa Independent Television, we are presenting this special cake to our guests for being here, and of course for spending the time with us. We just hand it over to him, and of course he has a word or two to. So on behalf of Personality Places and Events crew, we say thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you very much. How do you know that I love cakes?
So a word or two before we go, sir.
Right, on behalf of the management of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, I want to say thank you for this very thoughtful gesture. Thank you for the engagement that we had. Thank you for all the work that you do to communicate, you know, the right kind of messages to the generality of Nigerians. We look forward to further collaborations with your organization.
Thank you so much, sir.
It's all about personality interviews. It's about showcasing your events, both social and corporate. Let's celebrate you and showcase your memorable events on Personality Places and Events.
We are here in Nairobi, Kenya. Personality Places and Events in Atlanta, Georgia. We're in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates.
Don't miss out on all the fun. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, all at PPE Nigeria. For coverage or interviews, email ppenigeria@gmail.com. Personality, Places and Events. Let's celebrate you.
That was an interesting interview with Dr. Schwab. You can see that the health sector is not relenting in taking Nigeria further. Well, welcome back, and we're going to be taking you straight to our event section of today, and that is the 90th anniversary of the Aba Sports Club, which took place in Abia State. Personality Places and event was there. You don't want to miss this, so sit tight and enjoy. Taya and I will be right back to round up the show.
Personality Places and Events was in Aba, Abia State, the southeastern part of Nigeria, to witness the famous Aba Sports Club as it turned 90, which coincides with the Nigerian Independence Day celebration. Personality Places and Events found out, according to history, that the club was founded as Aba European Club in 1921 and incorporated as such on the 12th of March 1926. Its membership was then exclusively European, but by 1926 it had admitted 12 Africans. Thereafter, African membership of the club increased, and in 1970 the first Nigerian president of the club was Mr. Raleigh Nwosu, and he was duly elected. One of the 12 Africans who happens to be a Nigerian was Sir Onyeso Nwachukwu, the 94-year-old former chief whip of the Eastern Parliament that led the quest for the change of name of the club from Aba European Club to Aba Sports Club on the 14th of October 1982. He was there at the 90th anniversary of the club. Some of the main activities of the event was the presentation of awards to some outstanding members of the club and the cutting of the lovely anniversary cake.
The trustees, management, and personal membership of Aba Sports 1926 appreciate Honorable David for immense contributions he made towards the infrastructural development of the club. I hereby induct you into Diamond Hall of Fame. Congratulations. Diamond is 1 million short of platinum. It's 1 million short of platinum. Of the club. I hereby induct you to a Platinum Hall of Fame. Congratulations, dated the 2nd of October 2032. A round of applause. Cameraman, can you give a little space so that people can actually see what is going on here? Hold on. Okay, DJ, hold on, please. 2, 1, 2 and a half, 3.
On behalf of Personality, Places and Events crew, we congratulate all the members of the Aba Sports Club, giving you kudos from our end here.
It's all about personality interviews. It's about showcasing your events, both social and corporate. Let's celebrate you and showcase your memorable events on Personality Places and Events.
We are here in Nairobi, Kenya. Personality Places and Events in Atlanta, Georgia. We are in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates.
Don't miss out on all the fun. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and YouTube, all at PPE Nigeria. For coverage or interviews, email ppenigeria@gmail.com. Personality, Places and Events. Let's celebrate you.
Wow, so far so good. This is how far we can go on the program today. Personality, Places and Events. We hope you really had a wonderful time with us on this show. Before we go, we have one or two messages to give to you, and of course Nkemi is right here.
Yes, as always I place a reminder, please don't forget that this is Personality, Places and Events, and whatever form of event you're having, whatever form of program you're having, please don't forget to contact us with the number you see on your screen. Personality, Places and Events will be there to cover it for you, be it social, corporate, any form of event at all. We'll be right there to cover it for you. And I also want to thank Jabi Boat Club for giving us
the
sport,
space, you know, very nice place
it's
to
lovely.
relax. We are relaxing here anyway, so you can just take out of this. It's not about work all the time. You can just, you know, probably take your time.
You would actually feel you're in Ibiza.
Yes, at Jabi Boat Club, yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You know. Right, thank you very much for watching the show today, Personality, Places and Events once again. Next week we're going to be here by the special grace of Almighty God. Till next week, God bless you. My name is Eitayo Oyinso.
And I am Nkem Nzeji. Do have a wonderful time.
And bye for now.